All right. Good evening, ladies, and welcome to the Single Mom Support Group Live. Tonight, we're doing our YouTube Facebook crossover. So, we're not just live on YouTube or on Facebook, we're also live on YouTube as well. I mentioned it last week that I was going to do videos for putting on the YouTube page because I felt like this was an issue that needed to be in a queue, but going to still post it in the Single Mom Support Group page. So while it's live on YouTube, it'll be a video in the Single Mom Support Group, but you can check it out live also if you want to. It's a little bit earlier though. So tonight I've got my notes, I'm ready to go. I'm excited about being here again as public forum. So I'm on my best behavior, but we are talking about, and our topic is dealing with disappointment. I've got my notes, little trusty tablet. So I am ready. So what we're going to do tonight is define disappointment. I'm going to share with you about how many videos we're going to go through and just some other important things. So first off, we're going to do like a series of videos. So you know me, I'm not sure how long this will last. I planned for 2 videos for each section, but there might be more than 2 videos for each section, but about 30 minutes for each video. So I still want to stick to that 30 minutes or less line and everything. So just to recap what we've been talking about, or the introduction that I gave last week. First off, the disclaimer. This isn't an all-inclusive list. This isn't the way, the only way to deal with disappointment. There are a multitude of self-help books. There are a multitude of Christian books. There are so many different things available now to help people. So this is one of many ways that will help you deal with some of the things that happen in life that we have to deal with. So there are 3 goals that we're going to try and accomplish in our Dealing with Disappointment series, and 3 steps rather that this is going to take. So this is how this is going to start out. First off, we're going to acknowledge and affirm. And again, I said all of these things last week in the introduction video in the Single Mom Support Group. If you're not a member of the Single Mom Support Group on Facebook, it is a closed group. It's for single moms only. So if you're a single mom, if you're interested in that Facebook group, you can see the stuff that we don't post here on YouTube. There are a lot of videos that we have. This is start from the beginning of the year. So there are a lot of videos on there. So last week I did an introduction video on the Single Mom Support Group for dealing with disappointment. And in it I said, first thing we're going to do is acknowledge and affirm. The second thing we're going to do is erase and replace. And then the third step we're going to take is reconcile and resist. So I'm going to talk about each of those things as we come to them, and I'll clarify what all of that means as we walk through it. But those are the 3 steps that we're going to take to deal with our issues. So tonight, we're going to start with step 1, acknowledge and affirm. And it's great alliteration, acknowledge and affirm. But how practical is it? Is it practical? And that's a great question. But first, let's define disappointment. And you ladies, you know me. So Merriam-Webster is like my go-to dictionary, or my best friend. Like Merriam-Webster is a personal friend of mine. But however, for this word, most of the online dictionaries were echoing the same definition. So I'm just going to share with you the definition that I found and read it to you, which is: disappointment is unhappiness from the failure of something hoped for or expected to happen. And then some of them went on further to define disappointment as someone or something that fails to satisfy hopes or expectations. So Uh, the definition of disappointment is when things do not meet our expected goal, or we don't have that expected outcome. So there's something really important that I need you to understand first before we continue. Unhappiness, happiness, disappointment, all of these things have to do with external circumstances, external things that are happening to us or have happened to us. But as a person of faith, and this is just me, I know this, that there is true, lasting joy and peace that you can walk in regardless of what's happening to you or what the circumstances look like. Okay. And we're going to actually discuss a little bit of that as we continue walking through our study. But for the purposes of this discussion, we will be looking at the external things and focusing on the external things, those situations and circumstances that have shaken up our hearts or caused us and caused us to slow down our forward momentum, or those things that have happened to us that have caused us not to trust or to hesitate to trust, or things that have happened to us that just cause us to fear people and and fear people out of a fear of being hurt. So that's what we're looking at, the external things that cause disappointment. So as we discuss this topic, I'm going to use myself as an example. I always do this. And I've had some recent things that have happened that I can actually use as examples. So I'm going to, and again, with this public forum, I have to be watchful of how much I share. In the single mom support group, I just put it all out there. But because this is YouTube, um, there are some things that I want to be confidential. But we know the rule in single mom support group: what's said in there stays in there. So with this forum, I'm again going to be on my best behavior. But I'm going to be referring to some of these personal things that have happened to me as well, because we're walking through this together. It's not me sitting here telling you what to do. I'm dealing with my disappointments just like you're dealing with yours. So, first on the agenda, we're going to acknowledge and affirm. So, what does that mean? This is what this is going to look like. At the end of this particular section, you're going to end up with a list of people and situations that you were disappointed with. Okay. You're going to take each situation one by one, and we're going to say the what, the who, the how, and the effect that it had on you. Now, I discussed in previous videos in the Single Mom Support Group why it's important to do things out loud or to say things out loud. As a matter of fact, if you are a member of the Single Mom Support Group on Facebook, then you'll recall that there were a series of videos on adding value to yourself, where we talked about the benefit of self-talk out loud. So you get that stuff in your ear and you're stating these things. And that's more positive reinforcement. But what we're doing with acknowledgement is very similar to that. But what we're going to be doing is bringing to the forefront painful situations for the purpose of getting free from them. Okay, so as long as you harbor and hold on to those things in your heart, those hurtful things, those disappointments, those heart pains, then those things will have power over you. Just like when you speak words of affirmation to yourself, you give power to those words and you begin to see yourself and look at yourself in a different way. When we squash things down or hold on to them or just replay them, we're giving power to those things by not letting them go and releasing them. So acknowledgement is for that purpose. So here's our scripture reference. It's in Proverbs 23:7. And Proverbs 23:7 says, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." Now, my pastor is of the belief, and I agree with him. As a studier of the word, the Bible, then, I've studied stuff for myself. I just don't take someone else's word for it. So I agree that the comma in this particular verse might be in the wrong place, because as it's written, it says, as a man thinketh, comma, in his heart, so is he. No, as a man thinketh in his heart, comma, so is he. But myself, my pastor, are under the belief that the comma should be after that first word, thinketh. Thinketh, the ETH on the end of that means a continual continuity. So it keeps, you can translate it as keeps thinking. So as a man keeps thinking, comma, in his heart, so is he. So if your thinking is that these events that have happened to you, these things, these circumstances that have happened, have crippled you or damaged you, then as you focus on and meditate on the hurts and hold them inside, it just reinforces the thought that you are crippled and damaged. And what we're going to be doing is acknowledging these things. In essence, we're setting our intention to be free from the situations or any of the situations crippling and damaging effects. That's what acknowledging these things out loud is for. That's the purpose. So here's how we do this. First thing we're going to do is we're going to write it down. Get your pen, pencil, paper, whatever. And we're only focusing on one of the things right now in this video. We're only going to focus on one topic. Like, I'm going to share one of the events from my life as an example. And you're going to work on, just writing down one during our time together. But the reason for that is because these steps are duplicatable. So you can go back and over with all the different disappointments and just go through the same steps over and over for each one. So that's why we're going to do it. And then you're going to go back, go over and over until you cleaned out your whole closet. Okay. So the first step in acknowledging and affirming is that we're going to acknowledge that we've been hurt. Acknowledge that you've been hurt. Okay. How were you hurt? I was molested. I was raped. I was assaulted. I was hit. I was beaten. I was rejected. I was humiliated. That's what we're talking about. There was this time. For the purposes of our study, I'm going to use most recent thing was I was in a car accident back in August, because that's really a critical point that has affected my life. So, how was I hurt? I was hit by another vehicle out of the blue, minding my own business, thinking it's just, going to be a normal day. And then bam, all of a sudden, my life is affected, my family is affected, transportation affected, all these things. I was hit. I was hurt in the accident. There was physical hurt in the accident. There was emotional hurt in this accident. So I was hit and hurt by this thing. Okay, so just the event in this one step is what we're talking about. We're getting to other steps. We're talking about how it affected us a little further down, okay? But for right now, the event, what happened? I was hurt. I was raped. I was humiliated. I was embarrassed. Okay. So if you have something in your mind, go ahead and just write that down. This is what happened to me. I was rejected. I was dumped, something like that. Okay. The second part for acknowledging and affirming, and the acknowledgement part, is to acknowledge who it was that hurt you. So you want to be specific in this part with the names and events. Okay, so an example is my third grade teacher, Mrs. Teacher, chose Susie Q over me for the line leader. Everybody was always choosing Susie Q over me for everything. Okay, so in my case, and again, I'm using myself as an example, I would say something like someone who was in a rush and disregarded anyone else's safety because of their selfishness slammed into my car, causing both of us to be in a predicament. Okay. Now, these were my feelings. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that I'm accurate in my assumptions about selfishness, about, in a rush and disregarding safety and all of that stuff, because I don't know that person's heart. I didn't know them personally. I don't know their motives. All I know is the hurt that resulted from the incident, okay, and from their actions, okay? They were the at fault driver. So I can draw any conclusion that I want to draw based on the event that happened to me. Doesn't mean I'm accurate. I'm not trying to be accurate right now. And in this step, you're not trying to be accurate. You're trying to be honest. Okay? I'm trying to be honest with myself. This is what I thought. This is how I felt. This is what it looked like to me. It was you, So, and this is opportunity to be honest with yourself about how you feel about the situation. Okay. So, some things that you need to be aware of in this is that you might need to include yourself on the list. Okay. If you've disappointed yourself in any way, and sometimes we do that. I mean, as human beings, things like that happen. Okay. Be honest with yourself. This is opportunity to look at some of your personal choices and some of the things that were affected by your bad and poor decisions. And it's honest. And don't make excuses for it. Don't try to blame shift. I did this thing. This affected people. I disappointed myself because I allowed this to go on, I allowed this to happen, or I did this thing. I was the culprit. Okay? Again, this is how it felt. This is what I thought. That's what we're doing right here. Okay? Some other things that you need to be aware of is that, again, just tonight, we're focusing on the one event, the one issue, one thing. But you should make a short list for anything that you want to deal with, any kind of disappointment that you want to deal with, and acknowledge each one. Some people's lists are going to be longer than others. When I first set out to do this years ago, it was a long list. It was a long list. So, and then finally, for this video, because I'm trying to be watchful of the time, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here, but I got some more notes right here. I want to share one more thing that I feel is really important, okay? Some of you may need to add God to your list. And this is the list of those who have hurt with whom you're disappointed. They let you down, okay? So here is an honest moment for me. And I had to write down because all of my thoughts came just crashing back in when I was doing this. I dealt with this very thing some years ago, dealing with when I was working through some things and walking out, dealing with disappointment, my disappointment with God. And I was hesitant to even admit that I was disappointed with God or that I was upset with him, because my perspective is of God, is he's God, capital G, capital O, capital D. He's God. You don't get mad at God. He's God. No way do you have any right. But yet there were all these hurts and all these little things that I believed God was responsible for. They were nagging at me, and it hindered my relationship with him, because I felt if he would hurt me like this, why should I trust him? It's hard to trust him, but at the same time, I'm thinking I trust him because he's God. He's sovereign, he's God. But I wasn't free to come to him, and that's not relationship. You're not going to be in a good relationship with somebody that you don't trust. It's going to be surface. You're already thinking, I know this cat. I know what to expect from this guy. So I'm not even going to venture to get close. And that's where I was, knowing as a person of faith, knowing I'm supposed to be a child of God, yet he's hurting me. And how can I trust him if he's hurting me? But I'm supposed to trust him. I'm supposed to believe him. I'm supposed to all these things about God. But I was hurt. Okay. I felt God had abandoned me, or he dropped the ball, or he just hurt me because he could, because he's God. And if that's your situation, then you got to put God on your list, number one. But number two, this is an opportunity to be honest with yourself and with God about how you feel that he's hurt you. And there's even scripture for that. In Isaiah, the very first chapter, God is speaking and he says, come, let us reason together. God is a talker. He's a communicator. And he's for back and forth dialogue. He's not, it's my way or the highway. That's really not God. So God is not going to be mad at you for telling him how you feel and how you feel he's hurt you or wronged you. And what this is that you're finally acknowledging that you feel wronged by God. And the funny thing is that God has known this all along. God knows that you have issues with him, that you've got a problem with him, that whenever someone mentions his name, you're like, But then you're trying to worship in church. You're trying to be respectful, because he's God. But in your heart, there's just this, if I don't have to be around him, I don't want to be around him because he hurt me. And that's kind of how we do it with people that we can actually see. So God has known all along that you have you have something against him, and that you've not been willing to look at it. And your relationship with him is damaged because of it. And because you don't want to be real with God and with yourself. So if this is you, add him to the list and look at it. You will be amazed at the end of this how freeing, how cleansing, how releasing a lot of these things, just acknowledging these things, whether it's God or a person or yourself, just acknowledging these things is going to be for you. And we haven't even gone through the other steps. We're just acknowledging the hurts right now. And we're acknowledging the hurt and who hurt us and, what happened. So even at the end of your list, this one list, there might be tears. I went through a lot of this stuff. So um, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up right here. This is part one, affirming, acknowledge, and affirm for dealing with disappointment. So we're going to come back with our list next week, and we're going to walk through what to do with them. Again, I'm saying we because I've got things in my life that are disappointments that I need to deal with as well. So I'm not just sitting here trying to tell you what to do. I'm walking through this with you, and we're dealing with our disappointments together. So I am so glad that you joined me tonight. Single Mom Support Group Live, YouTube, Facebook crossover. I love our Friday nights together. I love that I get to come and engage with you and share some things with you that are on my heart. And looking at your comments, usually we're on Facebook, so I'm looking at your comments and you're waving and all that stuff. So I love that part about Friday nights is engaging with you, single moms. So you're my heart. I absolutely love you. And I will see you here next Friday, Single Mom Support Group. We're still talking about dealing with disappointment. We're still on the acknowledge and affirming part. And it's going to be great. So expect to be free, expect to get free, um, and expect to walk free. And again, if you need reference as far as the words, affirmations, things like that, that's in the Single Mom Support Group Facebook group. And there's a whole list of videos that you can go to and refer to. But that particular video is the ones where we're adding value to ourselves. So look for those adding value videos. And it talks about why acknowledging these things, saying things out loud is so powerful and so important for your life. So I will be here next Friday. I will see you here next Friday. Have an awesome, awesome weekend. Do something fun. Love on your kids. And I will see you then. Bye bye. I am sure I want to end my stream.